All right, hello and welcome. This is what we call on the Solid Verbal a bit of an EmergiPod. In case you're listening, in case you're unaware of why we're doing a show on a Tuesday evening. No, it's not in lieu of any show on a Wednesday evening. It's because we've got major breaking news. I can play the sound later, but we should talk about what's transpired in the world of college football. The big news of the day, Dan, your boy Willie Taggart leaving Oregon after a 7-5 season, only 361 days on the job. He has, in fact, decided to return to his home state of Florida and take over at Florida State. How you feeling?
A lot of things, Ty, are going through my tiny little noodle. I feel okay. I feel there's a part of me, because this has been in the works for a few days, it seems.
Right.
So I've been able to process things in the college football part of my brain, I think, pretty well, and sort of compartmentalize what I think of his extraordinarily short tenure in Eugene and what Oregon can and should do moving forward, and just the sort of bigger picture, like how I would have looked at something like this happening had I not been an Oregon fan.
Sure.
We sort of looked at with Lane Kiffin in Tennessee, leaving a really big program to go to the quote dream job.
Yeah, the dream job
and
thing. Sure.
The short idea of Todd Graham going to Pitt for a year and leaving for Arizona State in a very short amount of time. And so like thinking about how I looked at those instances and now sort of making peace with it happening at my school. It's been interesting.
Well, look, it's not a surprise, right? Because we've heard rumors about this. This stems back to, this goes back even before the Jimbo Fisher rumors, but Jimbo Fisher, this is sort of what brought it all on, right? If he's still at Florida State, there's not an opening in Tallahassee. Jimbo Fisher was rumored to be interested in A&M. That's when we started hearing rumblings about, well, if in fact Jimbo leaves and takes some deal, maybe not as big as the one he took in College Station, which direction would Florida State look? The obvious answer that everyone seemed to gravitate towards was Willie Taggart. He's a Florida guy. He's done wonders at Western Kentucky, at USF. He's familiar with the area. He seems like a natural fit for Florida State. If the position is open, perhaps that's the direction they would look. Now, the one hurdle, at least logically, that seemed to stand in the way of that was the fact that he just got to Oregon, and he was doing well at Oregon. He's a good coach. And though he's got a 47-50 record as a head football coach, he is regarded around the college football ether as someone who could turn things around quickly. Now, here we are. The news has broken, despite the fact that Willie Taggart tweeted out late on Saturday night now, that he was looking forward to getting back out there on the road and building towards 2018 as an Oregon Duck. Lo and behold, it's broken that he is going to jump back to Florida. He is going to take that Florida State job. And a big part of the reason why we're doing this show, Dan, is because even though we cover college football, we are fans at heart as well. And so I'm hoping that we can use however long this goes to not only help you process, but maybe a bit of a cathartic experience for you. We're going to have Geoff Schwartz on in a little bit. I know he's your texting buddy during some of these Oregon football games. We're going to get his response as well. Heated. So, yeah, let's just use the space however we see fit. I care first and foremost about you, though, Daniel. I really do.
Thank you. So I would back up to the start of this, just in terms of how I'm thinking about it, because Willie Taggart came in with the reputation of a rebuilder, a restructurer, a reinvigorator, a recruiter. So all the re's. And so under the guise of that, he came into Oregon, immediately filled out a recruiting class that was sort of decimated after Mark Helfrich was fired, with kids from Florida, but also had, and here's one of the things I think when you're a little bit angry and sad that your coach has left for another job, what looks to be a better job, is that you maybe tend to gloss over the parts you didn't like and just think about the recruiting and how good Oregon looked when Justin Herbert was healthy and the general hope that Oregon had that they were back on their path to success. But the fact is, when he arrived, it was pretty rocky. His co-offensive coordinator got a DUI pretty quickly into his time in Eugene and was let go. They lost another assistant who I think was also in that car to UCLA, and that was I think he was sort of pushed out. And then he had the rhabdo thing with his strength coach, and that sort of poorly reflected. And
it was rocky in the beginning, wasn't it?
It was rocky.
Yeah.
And he as a figurehead looked very raw, dealing with public perception. He got into the fight with Andrew Greif, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I always forget. The Oregonian beat writer, and he was saying, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. It was a very raw beginning to his tenure, and that was a little unusual considering he had been a head coach before at USF in Western Kentucky, and then hired super well. That's sort of highlighted by Mario Cristobal and Jim Leavitt, who did a great job. Spring was fine, inherits a very promising young quarterback in Justin Herbert. Summer, recruiting is, you have excitement around Oregon, which is sort of how the program is structured, that you have certain programs, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama, who can sell tradition, and this is what these legends did at our program throughout the century of college football. And you go other places, and it's like, here's the blue collar. We have a lunchbox on our sideline. Like, Oregon marketed itself, wisely so, as sort of an outsider, as exciting and fresh and flashy, whatever. And so Willie Taggart, as a younger guy, somebody who was very active on social media, somebody who recruited very well, and there were hashtags, there were all sorts of pictures of him. I don't know if you ever saw those pictures of him holding up like half an O with one hand and a recruit holding up, half an O with the other hand, and they put it together in some sort of like Captain Planet-y type way.
Yeah, right.
But there were those things. They were just very active in ways that, Mark Helfrich and Chip Kelly and Mike Bellotti certainly were not. And that was great. I think that was a refreshing thing for Oregon. So there is this sense that he is somebody who himself is excited about being in Eugene and excited about building something towards the future. And when he leaves, you're sort of left with the, like, we get it, but you feel a little bit played, and how much of it was, and he was doing it while negotiating, or his agent was negotiating with Florida State. So it leaves you a little chapped, right?
Well, there are so many Taylor Swift songs that we could apply to this. I think it goes without saying. And you bring up a picture. I know it's a little bit off topic, but my favorite subplot in this whole Willie Taggart drama has been the constant reuse of a non-Willie Taggart photo that apparently was mislabeled.
Oh, yeah. Michael Johnson, the wide receivers coach.
That's been my favorite subplot. But you're right. And look, here's the thing. I haven't been there recently, but Lord knows we've covered plenty of these coaching searches and plenty of fan bases in their reaction to these coaching searches. People tend to go a little bit out of their gourd because, there is this natural scorn. There is this natural feeling of, oh, we got played. I guess where I go next, just as someone who maybe doesn't have a skin in this game, but I think where a lot of fans would go when a coach leaves to go to another position is, oh my God, are we now a stepping stone job?
Right.
Okay, Oregon's done a really good job in the last decade building up that football program. But whenever you have a situation where a guy goes elsewhere to, no doubt, a more traditional power in Florida State, I think that's a question that deep down as a fan you're asking yourself. Is that something that you've thought of?
Sort of, not necessarily in the context of just the clean and cut stepping stone thing, but thinking about the challenges of succeeding at a place like Oregon that is far away from, and even though the recruiting has gotten better, the talent has gotten better in the Pacific Northwest, one of the other issues is it's not necessarily always the playing talent, but it's the coaching talent. And you can attract coaches to the West Coast, I think, in the short term, if they're not from the West Coast. So if they're from the Midwest, from the South. I mean, Chip Kelly was unique because from the Northeast. And so there wasn't necessarily a tie to a major college football region because that upper part of the Northeast, he's from New Hampshire, so like Vermont and Maine and, apologies to Connecticut and New York, but they're not hotbeds. They're not, I have to return home and play in front of the adoring college football masses.
Sure.
So that seems like an exception. And so Mike Bellotti is I believe he's from California. Chris Peterson's from the West Coast. Clay Helton is not. And, certainly now Chip Kelly has football roots on the West Coast at UCLA, and Rich Rod is not, but, came to Arizona on the sort of descending part of his star after Michigan. And I don't even know what to make of Herm Edwards. So I'm not even going to, but like Kyle Whittingham is local to Utah. So in bringing somebody like Willie Taggart across the country, even with his couple years at Stanford, is a pretty calculated risk. So I don't think Oregon is a stepping stone job, but I think Oregon is a very good job made very good by a very good specific coach. I don't think it stands alone like Notre Dame, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Florida, Miami. You know what I'm saying? That it doesn't necessarily, you can't say Oregon is a special job for anybody, because it's still far away from where a lot of coaches come from. And I was thinking about, and I went through all the Power 5 schools, like how many people that grew up on the West Coast have gone east or to the South or Midwest, whatever, to a big job actively, currently. And it's basically just Derek Mason at Vanderbilt, which not a big job, apologies to the Doors, and Tom Herman to Texas. And that's it, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that's just a challenge. I love the West Coast. I wish everybody loved the West Coast and had the ability to spend time there. But it is, I hate the phrase, but that is what that is. So it's not a stepping stone job, but it is a tricky job made great by the correct great candidate coach. That's how I sort of feel about it, if that makes sense.
Here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
I want you to remove the, I guess, normal guardrails that you and I put up when we do a podcast, where we're intimately familiar with the fact that we've got different makes and models of fans listening to our show.
Sure.
I just want you to be an Oregon fan now, and I want you to vent.
Yeah.
I want you to vent. I want you to talk to me like you talk to people on text message. I want the pure raw nerve here to come through, because again, we are fans. Like, this happens to our teams too. Just because it hasn't happened to Notre Dame recently doesn't mean it won't happen soon.
Well, you've had Notre Dame emotions. I mean, I've had
Notre Dame emotions, but
bad extensions. And,
not in the coaching realm, and not recently. Not recently,
but I mean, I can bring up Charlie Weiss, I can bring up Ty Whittingham, I can bring up Bob Davie, and I think there's still open wounds there.
Let me pull a Mark McGuire, man. I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future.
No, let's talk Oregon. What do you want to know?
I want you to be raw and unfettered here.
So my general opinion is Oregon needs to hire somebody who fits, doesn't have to be the Willie mold in terms of being young and, crazy on social media and bringing in a top 3, 5, 7 class or whatever. But the prospect, and our pal Bruce Feldman tweeted this out, of bringing in Jim McElwain or Mike Leach or I saw Jeff Tedford, all of who have done good, interesting things relatively recently at schools of varying size, that's fine. But to me, if you are going to project yourself in that way, in Oregon's way, you have to bring in somebody, or maintain a relationship with somebody like Mario Cristobal that I think I'd be okay with. Kevin Sumlin is out there, and it doesn't excite me in a way that, it's impossible, because I'm still deeply in love with the Chip Kelly era, and I can't tell you I'm not. So I need to be convinced, Ty. I need to be wowed. I need to be showed the love that I want to feel.
Dan's just a girl in the world. He needs love.
I'm just a girl in the world. So no, here's honestly what I think is Oregon needs to spend money. They need to give money to a head coach. They need to open the coffers for the assistant pool, and they somehow, Oregon had all the advantages in the world in terms of continuity before, and having, Mike Bellotti and his staff and that carried over with Chip Kelly and Mark Helfrich, and they could sort of brag about that. They could recruit to the fact that these guys aren't leaving. And now they've regressed to the mean. They, having 3 head coaches, I suppose, in a year, right? With Helfrich, Taggart, and whoever is going to come in or stay in Eugene. That's rough. You're going to lose guys, and that sucks. And that sucks and I honestly people tweeting, man, how do you fault Willie Taggart for going home? How do you fault it? The job has only come open once in 40 years. He's going to make $5 million to coach football. I don't have Willie Taggart on my fantasy Happy 4 team. There are guys getting their heads bashed in because Willie Taggart told them to fly from Florida to Oregon to play for him. Oregon's very different from Florida. And so it sucks. And I have a lot of shortcomings. And that, when I think about it like that, like when I look back at how I felt about Lane Kiffin leaving Tennessee or Todd Graham leaving Pitt, I don't think we, and I can only speak to myself, spent enough time saying, man, that sucks for those dudes on that team who wanted to play for Todd Graham or Lane Kiffin. That sucks that they're just left in the lurch again twice in a year. So that's what, like, to me, it's like, man, Willie Taggart abandoned a lot of dudes.
I'm not an Oregon fan. I'm a college football fan. If my team ended up hiring Jeff Tedford, even though he's done a really good job at Fresno, I'd put my hand through the wall in front of me. Of course. I could go right through. That just does not have the sex appeal. Mario Cristobal is a good coach. By all accounts, he's a good coach. He's the interim coach now for this Las Vegas Bowl that Oregon's got coming up against Boise. Mm-hmm. Mario Cristobal doesn't have the sex appeal of a Willie Taggart. Might be a good hire. Might end up working out if he's the guy. But you can't help but feel a little underwhelmed if he's the guy who's named.
And, Cristobal was let go. And, some people look at, the relationship that Cristobal had with the AD and said that, like, Cristobal is unfairly marred by the experience of what happened at FIU. I'm at the point where I just want to be able to look at the Willie Taggart era for what it was and then figure out what's best moving forward, because obviously what I think is so important. But no, I mean, at the same time of all of this, of being let down by, all of the like enthusiasm unknown to mankind and hashtag do something and like all of these like platitudes that turned out to be very temporary. I would like to see, like, Willie Taggart went 7-5. His starting quarterback got hurt, and Oregon was dreadful. They were very bad on offense. They really could not get it together. They beat Utah. Otherwise, they were really bad against some pretty average teams in Washington, who is very good most of the time. So this isn't losing Chip Kelly to Florida State. It's not losing Mike Bellotti to UCLA when he interviewed but didn't go. So I want to be very careful about, like, Willie Taggart. There was a lot of hope. There was a lot of good that we saw, hopefully, in the future, but he didn't accomplish a ton.
So look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to call your texting buddy, Geoff Schwartz, former Oregon Duck, former offensive lineman in the NFL. And I just want to sit back and listen to you two riff about this a little bit.
We only have a few minutes.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Hello?
Jeff, just let me know what you're thinking right now. What is going through your head?
I'm not that disappointed, considering this is basically the only job where I felt Taggart would leave right away for. It seems to be his dream job. I'm just more upset that Jim Leavitt might be gone too, and a recruiting class that he's built up is also probably going to leave. And I just never felt that Oregon would be a program that had a coach there for 1 year. And now we're another upheaval, and I was really excited with the direction of the program. And now I don't know how to feel.
And you never, when you were at Oregon, there was never like a major change. There was an assistant or coordinator swapping out. Chip Kelly came for your senior year. But what, at this point, when there is like 2 changes in a year, what do you guess it's like around a program?
Well, you have to start over, and that's why I think they're really going to hire from within, because they don't want to start over again. And Cristobal seems like the natural fit, at least for now. Maybe he doesn't do well, maybe he does, but you have to change everything about your program if you bring a new head coach. And even just as simple as changing the slogan, right? They went from win the day to do something. It's just totally everything's different. You have to change teams again. Maybe you have to recruit differently. And this way, if you hire from within, you don't have to do very much to change it.
Is that your preference?
I think at this point, the names have been thrown out already. Jeff Tedford, pass on that. Mike Leach, as much as I love Mike Leach, as far as him in the media and what he says, I don't think he's a fit at all for Oregon. I don't ever see Oregon getting to playoff with Mike Leach, their head coach. Norvell just re-signed with Memphis.
Yep.
I think Lane Kiffin's probably not going to be hired by Oregon. Doesn't seem like a guy they'd go after. I saw Wilcox possibly. He did well at Cal this year. Mm-hmm. But I don't. No one really excites me.
All right, and so if it is Cristobal, hypothetically, what is it about the makeup of? And you've played for a number of offensive line coaches, both college and in the pros. What is there specifically about an offensive line coach when he is an offensive coordinator, when he is a head coach? Is there something specific to that sort of makeup of a coach that either is good or not so good for a head coach?
Well, as an offensive line coach, at least from schematically, you have to know almost everything. I think people believe that we just have to know the run game and whatnot, but typically you have to know a lot more about the offense than your other position coaches. Wide receiver coaches don't know what the offensive line is doing. And this, kind of everything, this defense as well, from a schematic point of view, I like it. As far as just from personality, offensive linemen, we have to work harder. We are at certain points of our life. We get along with most everybody. We have that really that working attitude, and now he might be in the spotlight. He's always been a head coach, but spotlight for us is not that big of a deal. And so I think it'd be a great to keep him on and keep that cohesiveness, especially offensively. And if Robert leaves, hopefully, bring someone in or elevate somebody.
What do you think your lasting opinion will be of Willie Taggart almost spending a year in Eugene, which, obviously is a special place for you, is a special place for me. But the fact that he does leave after, 11 months and change for a dream job, but also, recruited kids from across the country and, didn't last a full cycle and really made a lot of money to coach a huge team. His life would not have been terrible if he didn't take the Florida State job. What is your lasting impression, do you think?
I think a lot of that depends on where the program goes. If the program takes a nosedive for 3 years, then I think they'll get a lot of blame for that. If the program continues to go back to where I think it can be, then he probably won't be forgotten, quite honestly, because he's only there, like you said, 11 months, and he'll kind of be followed as maybe the guy that got the program a new energy and a new life. But if they continue to win, people won't be upset. But, if Oregon, I'm worried about Oregon going in the tank for many years now, because we hired the wrong coach. I wasn't sure about Taggart at first, but I heard about his attitude and saw the changes right away that were made with the program. And if somehow we hire someone else and that doesn't happen, it doesn't go well for a couple of years, I think a lot of fans will rightfully be upset with Willie for leaving.
Do you think Oregon is a great job? One of the things I said was Oregon is a great job with a great coach, but the challenges are still such that it's easy to screw up as well.
I'm probably more on the side of it's not a great job. I mean, I think it's a maybe a 15 to 20 job, maybe less 20 to 25 best job. I'm probably a little bit more skeptical of how great the job is than most Oregon fans. I think recruiting is very hard because there's no talent in Oregon. There's not much even talent in Washington. And then you go to California, you have USC, now you have UCLA, Chip Kelly. Stanford's always going to recruit the best offensive lineman in the West Coast. Cal's gotten better. So Willie did a good job of getting kids from other states. And Chip started that as well, getting other kids from other states come in. But I just think it's a recruiting challenge. And it's a small school in a small city. Now, they love football, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Eugene loves their football. They treat the players well. But I don't think it's a top 15 job.
Final question. What % chance, 0 to 100, do you give Oregon, the administration, athletic director, whoever, the boosters, Phil Knight, what % chance do you give them of hiring somebody great that sort of keeps the upward trajectory? And what %, I guess, do you think that they just bomb this hire?
I mean, I think it's almost 50-50, right? You promoted Chip Kelly, that was fantastic. They've always done the promotion thing, right? They promoted Bellotti, they promoted Chip Kelly, those are all great. They promoted Alfred, didn't go very well. Brought in Taggart, went well. So if they're going to promote Cristobal, I think it's a 50% chance it goes well. I think that they'll do it with the right intentions. I don't think that the search process will be something that they don't do thoroughly. So I have faith they'll do a thorough process. I think every head coaching hire is very unique. And I can't say with certainty they're going to hit out of the park. I mean, they might try to get a bunch of big names, and those guys might say no, but I end up with a coach who who might be a small-time guy that you don't think is good. If to start out, he ends up being great. Or they might hire a big cat who's not very good at Oregon. So I think it's really 50-50.
Is your early vote right now Cristobal then for continuity?
Yeah, unless Chris Peterson wants to come to Eugene, or unless Pete Carroll's done with Seattle. I don't know who else realistically at this point in the year, or who would be a good fit in Oregon. I mean, I would have said Scott Frost too, but he got his dream job at Nebraska.
Fair. All right, Geoff. Thank you. Say hi to your kids for me.
I will. Take care.
All right, Dan. So there you go. That is Geoff Schwartz.
From the pit of hell.
Yeah, wherever.
I think he was picking up his kid at like a swimming class or something, so that's the noise.
For Oregon fans out there who might be in the pit of hell right now, learning of this news, thank you for tuning into our broadcast. We are a college football show. We normally broadcast around this time of year every Wednesday and Sunday. Talk about other relevant coaching news and bowl games now, everything that we've got coming up in the coaching circuit. We'll put out a new show tomorrow in which, I don't know, maybe we'll announce a live show in Atlanta.
Ooh.
Maybe we'll talk about other bowl games and other coaching news and things of the like.
Where should people keep their eyes so they can learn all of these things?
People should keep their eyes peeled right here on the Facebook page, where a lot of you are listening. Stay tuned to our Twitter account at twitter.com/solidverbal. We've also been pretty active this year on Instagram as well. You can find us in all the usual hotspots, as well as a subreddit that was created by our listeners for our listeners at reddit.com/r/solidverbal. But the larger point here is I just wanted to give you a chance to vent, to get this all out. Willie Taggart has been announced as the new Florida State football coach. He is going home, so to speak, and this is one of my other favorite subplots. We saw it with Scott Frost. Gonna see it now with Willie Taggart. But whenever...
I mean, we've seen it all over, in previous years, too.
Well,
we saw Paul Chryst leave after, 2 or 3 years from Pitt back to Wisconsin. We do see this
No.
often.
What I'm saying, though, and you're right, going back to the alma mater, going back to the home state, but what I'm talking about specifically is the welcome home hashtag. The welcome home banners, the welcome home memes that you see floating around the internet.
You know what? If Oregon hires Justin Wilcox away from Cal, that's exactly what they're going to have.
You'll be flying the banner over Autzen.
There are pictures of Justin Wilcox playing Thanksgiving football with Justin Herbert when Herbert was like 9. Apparently, he and his family, God, could you imagine the fantasy? That might be number 1 overall fantasy if Justin Wilcox takes the Oregon job after just a year at Cal, just bringing everything full circle. Can I ask you a couple names from the outside, what you would think?
Yeah, sure.
If Oregon hired them? Okay, so we talked about Mario Cristobal a bunch. Obviously, the other big coordinator name with Oregon is Jim Leavitt.
Jim Leavitt.
So if they were to hire Cristobal or Leavitt, what would your reaction be?
I'd be underwhelmed. And I know what Geoff said. Geoff knows a lot more about football than you and I. The continuity is important, whether it's through Cristobal or Leavitt. Cristobal
that's short term, yeah.
Cristobal, both of them have head coaching experience in the state of Florida. And it sounds like Jim Leavitt may be headed with Willie Taggart down there to Florida State. So if it does end up being Cristobal, look, he's a good coach. Can't help but feel a little bit underwhelmed coming from Chip Kelly a couple of years back, and most recently Willie Taggart, who was, billed as the next great thing.
If it were both, Cristobal, say, at head coach and a big raise to Leavitt at defensive coordinator?
Again, you like the continuity. I think if you get both, you feel better about that the program's not going to bottom out. But, I still think scorned a little bit more by the departure of Willie Taggart than I would be relieved at the continuity of keeping those guys around.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if Mario Cristobal is awesome for 2 years, 3 years, and who knows what job opens up, South Carolina, Georgia Tech, certainly it doesn't look like a job in Florida. A big job in Florida is opening up, but if a big job opens up in the Southeast, you're going through it all over again. So there is that calculated risk again. Mike Norvell just signed an extension, so it doesn't appear that he will be
He's staying put, yep.
And he weirdly, there were rumblings of, teams sort of growing cold on him when they did more vetting. Kevin Sumlin.
Kevin Sumlin's interesting to me.
Okay.
I think he got a bit of a raw deal at A&M. And I know the results weren't there on the field the way they wanted, but the SEC West is crazy hard.
Sure.
I still like what he did there. I know it went downhill a bit after Johnny Manziel left, but he's an exciting coach. He's a great recruiter. I don't know to what degree he's got a comfort zone in the Pacific Northwest. And though I don't think it's quite as excitable a hire as a Willie Taggart, I think that's a good option.
Yeah, well, Willie Taggart certainly more of an unknown from a Power 5 perspective. He's been a Power 5 coach for, again, 11 months.
Sure.
Whereas we know more about Kevin Sumlin. We know more about his record, the ups and the downs and the in-betweens, and who knows what Texas A&M looks like if he and the coaching staff and everybody involved didn't screw up the Kyle Allen, Kyler Murray thing where you go from 2 5-star quarterbacks to no 5-star quarterbacks very quickly. The thing with him is the SEC West, the SEC in general. People are driven crazy by the fact that Nick Saban is coaching in the same conference. Everybody wants to find the Nick Saban. And the second they realize that they don't have him, they're more inclined to just toss aside whoever is head football coach and go in a different direction. Yeah. That may be true to some extent with someone at A&M. I still think he's a really good football coach. And if he is the guy, if he is someone that Oregon is interested in, they probably have the personnel to run that system. Sure. I don't think what Kevin Sumlin has traditionally done, he hasn't always been consistent in the way that he's run the ball. And so, he's a Mike Leach guy, I believe. He was at Oklahoma with him, I believe. But what he did at Houston, setting records through the air with Case Keenum, and obviously what he did at Texas A&M and recruiting. And you have to assume that coming into a situation with Justin Herbert, who when healthy is, probably one of the best 8 quarterbacks in the country, has to be very enticing to people because that will just make you look good. So that's interesting to me from a Kevin Sumlin perspective, who, coached and played at Purdue. He coached at Minnesota and Wyoming, Oklahoma, Texas. So he's not necessarily as tied to a specific region as it seemed Taggart was. What about Brian Harsin? Much more regional.
Wow.
Who I believe interviewed or had conversations last year around this time.
Yeah, I like Brian Harsin, and I like him because for a long time it was believed that his dream job was Boise State. So if you could pluck someone away from their supposed dream job, maybe you're more inclined to keep someone around for a longer period of time.
A Mountain West dream job, yeah.
A Mountain West dream job, sure. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, see, that's I think the general. It peaks at okay.
You're going to feel okay with pretty much anyone at this point.
Like we needed somebody. Somebody needed to occupy a picture on the wall.
What about Jim McElwain?
From seeing what he did and how that his tenure ended in Gainesville recently, it feels like way more of a downslope, way more of a dissension, whatever, than Kevin Sumlin would be. Because even when they won the SEC East, it was just sort of like they were the worst team in the SEC, I guess. Like that's all it really felt like. And it seemed like his interpersonal and public dealings would be a pretty big shift from Willie Taggart. And even like Chip Kelly, they're like the Jim McElwain thing does not at all excite me. And I don't think it would excite many Oregon fans.
He wouldn't receive the bizarre, unsubstantiated threats in Eugene that maybe he got at Florida. I think we could say that. But the danger with him is he came in to Florida, I think, thought of as a bit of an offensive guru, a quarterback guru. He had some history with Nick Saban and did wonders at Colorado State in a very short period of time. He's a good football coach, and he still has that to his credit.
I would be concerned that there were recruiting concerns about him in Gainesville.
Sure.
And sort of porting that to Eugene is sort of troubling to me.
Well, and my larger point here is he has a quarterback at Oregon if he ends up going there. Sure. If he steps into that job and the offense isn't any good, if the quarterback position is a dumpster fire, then all of a sudden you've got a crisis.
And what we saw, Oregon has a blue chip quarterback committed right now, I think from Arizona. And it looks like he's still going to come. I have no idea. I don't pretend to know what recruits are thinking. But beyond Justin Herbert, as we saw this year, it is thin pickings. And, hey, good luck to Willie Taggart, who last year Jimbo struggled with a backup quarterback, and now Willie Taggart goes there, and we'll see what happens with the Florida State quarterback job. But you're not wrong. You're not at all wrong. Can I give you, I'm trying to think of any more names. So like Justin Wilcox.
Justin Wilcox would be a
promising
good move.
Moments at Cal.
Yeah.
Local to Eugene.
I would
big
like that
moments.
Move.
You do like that move.
I would like that move, yeah.
I think you can spin it optimistically. I've spoken to somebody who has spent a bunch of time with him this season who sort of said, I don't know if Justin Wilcox would take that job. I don't think Justin would leave after a year or something like that from what he's done at Cal. He hired well at Cal. He just lost his defensive line coach, Jerry Azzanaro, to UCLA and Chip Kelly. But I could be talked into it, just seeing how he was able to recruit. And I like the fact that he has coached at Tennessee and Boise and Wisconsin and USC and Washington. Like, he's been all over. He has connections, not just to recruiting, but to hiring assistants. So that to me is a positive thing, but it's not electric, Ty. I got to tell you, it's not electric. And I don't know if there is an electric option.
Well, Greg Schiano is the electric option, Dan. You know that.
Oh, it's more like an electric fence.
What do you feel about Mike Leach?
I feel that Mike Leach has a very fun public veneer in press conferences and in scrums, and is also sort of low key, kind of problematic, and gets along with people in tricky ways or doesn't get along with people in tricky ways. So I think there's some interpersonal stuff that's to be desired. And when you sign up for Mike Leach, you sign up for a very specific system, rain or shine. And I don't know if I like the lack of adaptability. I don't know if I like that. And he's had a ton of success, and he has beaten everybody. And at the same time, the recruiting thing scares me a little bit, that he's not going to be able to recruit in the way that Oregon envisions themselves as able to do.
Yeah, right.
It would feel like B- C+.
I always feel about Mike Leach, and I don't know if I've used this analogy on the show before. I feel about Mike Leach the same way I do Cold Stone Creamery. Like, I like it, and there are times where I definitely have an appetite for it.
Yeah.
But it's not the go-to every time I'm interested in ice cream.
Yeah, I was going to say milkshakes. We've talked about milkshakes before, and that's how we became friends with Adam Amin. I have maybe 1 or 2 milkshakes a year.
You could take it in doses, and it's a lot of fun. It makes it better that you take it in doses and not all the time. But there's something about, I think, that system, that personality. I could see that wearing thin on you if you're a fan, and it's not consistently good, if that makes sense.
No, that's totally right. It's if you have a group of friends and everybody loves hanging out, and this guy, this girl, whatever, they make hanging out real fun. Do I want to be their roommate?
Nope.
I don't know.
No.
But do I like playing Golden Tee? Do I like, going out and playing and like pick up basketball with them? Yeah, they're great. I just, every day? Every day with Phil? I don't know. So any other options that you see, as connected to the West Coast? Because there are big names out there. Mike Gundy spoke with Tennessee, and then he got a raise at Oklahoma State. And you know who I would have loved, Ty? Because this is a timing thing. Sorry.
Sure.
My dream of dreams would have been like Bob Stoops still at Oklahoma and just nab Lincoln Riley after year 2. I was thinking about that a couple years ago when I was, sitting through the end of the Mark Helfrich era. And I was like, what about Lincoln Riley? He seems fun. He seems like he's young and can put up yards. Let's get him to Eugene. But alas, he now is coaching in the playoffs.
Let me ask you a very personal question.
Always.
Are you at all active on Oregon message boards? Not necessarily as a poster, but maybe just as a lurker.
I have... Yeah, I don't post a lot, and I don't even post, period. But I am familiar with conversations that happen.
Who do you think is the most improbable candidate that someone on the message boards will trot out for the Oregon position?
Improbable? I've seen Chris Peterson.
Yeah, I don't think Peterson's going there.
is about, it's not like people say like throw $10 million a year. And like, no, I don't think it's a money thing.
What kind of odds can I get? And you're going to have to police this. I don't know if this is going to be a thing or not. What kind of odds can I get on someone on an Oregon message board trotting out Brian Kelly?
Oh, 0.0. I mean, you would get 10,000 to 1 odds.
10,000. I'll take 25 to 1 odds.
Really?
And I'll make that bet with you.
Well, so here's the complicated thing that came up when Chip was going to UCLA is Brian Kelly is now entrenched at a former Adidas, current Under Armour school. I don't know if there's a push-pull because apparently this is the alleged thing that Phil Knight in Oregon sort of see Adidas as like, well, they've been around forever and like, we think we're a lot higher than Adidas, but we acknowledge that they exist. The Under Armour thing is like this weird craw, and I don't think it was an actual meaningful standing in the way situation at UCLA for Chip Kelly and his relationship. But I think Chip Kelly probably made a phone call and was like, listen, here's what's going on. Kevin Sumlin's an Adidas, has been at an Adidas school for a while. Brian Kelly, that Under Armour thing, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's another aspect of this search, I would say.
It's another aspect. I'm talking purely in the realm of the hypothetical.
Don't think it'll happen. Don't think that conversation will happen.
25 to 1 odds is what I want. Will you make that bet with me? 25 to 1.
Yeah.
25 to 1. People out there listening, police very quietly your local Oregon message board. And if Brian Kelly's name pops up, let us know. Please don't be the one to do it. This is like a reverse secret
come on.
verbal. Don't be the one to do it.
We're going with honesty here. The honesty. What's the policy I'm going for? I'm out of my
the honor code.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, honor code.
I will give you a singular dollar bill at our live show in Atlanta next month. If in fact, I'm assuming Oregon should have a coach by then. If in fact Brian Kelly's name does not appear,
I assume Oregon. Well, signing day is what, 2 weeks from tomorrow? I really hope so.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
More to come on this story. We will cover it the way we do so many other coaching breaks that have gone on here in the early going of the college football postseason now on our Wednesday podcast, which you can find at solidverbal.com. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher, TuneIn. Literally everywhere you could find a podcast, you can find the Solid Verbal. We are free. We'll be twice a week until after the bowl season, at which point we still broadcast year-round, but we'll start up on a once-a-week Wednesday schedule, talking college football the full year through. Daniel, keep us posted, all right?
Will do.
For that gentleman over there, morning, as Willie Taggart has gone on to Florida State, Oregon now, back in the throes of a head coaching search. His name is Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition Willie Taggart Panic Pod, EmergiPod, whatever you want to call it.
Can we do it for Notre Dame someday?
Oh, my God. It will take on a much darker tone when it happens for Notre Dame.
I can't wait to be on the other end.
We'll catch you all soon. Take care.
Peace.